This is how you do a classic black and white conversion in Photoshop. All right, so obviously the first thing we need to do to our image is turn it black and white. So to do that, we're going to go down to our adjustment layers, this little half circle thing, click on that and choose gradient map. It's going to do this funky thing to your image, but before we fix that, we're going to change our method from perceptual to classic. If you have an older version, you might just have classic. Then we're going to click in this gradient right here, which is going to open up our gradient editor, and we're going to make some changes. So to start, we're going to go into basics, and we're going to choose this first one right here. Boom. That's going to put black here and white here. But that's good for like a high contrast one, but we need to change those two things a little bit. So we're going to click on this black box, click right here, and we're just going to take the black and slide it up to whatever your liking is, and then let go. So you can see what that does is now instead of our darkest areas, like let's say right here being black, the darkest areas of our image are now whatever gray we choose right here. So I'm going to kind of wash it out a little bit like that. Click OK. Then go to the other side, click on it, click on white, and bring the whites down so they're not as bright. So somewhere in there. So it kind of washes it out a little bit, and then click OK. Now all we have to do to create a little bit more drama in here is drag this box in a little bit and this one in a little bit as well. If you want to adjust your midtones, you can move this guy around as well to create whatever look you want in there. I'm going to keep mine pretty much right in the middle for now. And then just click OK when you're good. Next, we're going to click back on our original image and then go back to our adjustment layers, and this time choose black and white. And basically what these sliders are, as you slide them around, you can adjust parts of your image that go with that color. So this will adjust anything that's associated with red from the original image. If I hold Alt, anything that was red will be adjusted by this slider. But for me, I like to just go up here and click on Auto to start instead of using the default that was up here. And for what we're doing here, that probably will create a good look. So if I click this eyeball, that's what it was before. This is what it is after. It just adds a little bit to the image. If you want to play around with these, then go ahead. Just be aware that if you go too far, then sometimes it makes your image kind of fall apart or whatever. So just make sure to remember what the original number is right here before you start sliding, just in case it looks bad. So then you can go back to the original number, which in this case was 66 for this one. So play around in here until you get the image looking the way that you want. Then just go back to our adjustments, click on it again. This time pick levels, and you're once again going to mess around in here. So this slider darkens your darks. This one brightens your brights. This one darkens your brights. And this one brightens your darks. Then this is your midtones one right here. So for me, I'm actually going to crunch this over. Even though we don't want a high contrast image, I'm going to move this one over just a little bit, like to where this mountain starts. And I'm going to move this one in just a touch as well. And then I'm going to jump down here and kind of counteract that. So I'm going to bring this in to now brighten up some of those darks that we just darkened here. And then this is going to darken some of those brights. So you kind of wash it in reverse. So these ones added a little contrast, and then we took it away with these ones. So that's what we had before. This is after. It's not a big adjustment, but I'm going to keep going here and, keep washing this out a little bit so that now we have this is what was before and this is now after. Next, we're going to add a curves adjustment to kind of darken around the subject, create kind of a little spotlight on our subject. So just make sure you're selected on levels, go to the little half circle thing, click on it and select curves. Then just click in the middle here and drag down until you have the background looking quite a bit darker than your subject. Ignore what it's doing to the subject. So I kind of like what that's done to the rest of the image around here. And now we have to do, well, we're selected on the mask, not on the little icon thing here, actually on the mask. We're going to get our brush, make sure we have black in the foreground here. So if you don't see it, click and slide to black, click OK. And then adjust your size to be fairly big so it's larger than your subject. So that's probably too big. Maybe for me, something around that, like that. And then make sure the hardness is at 100, opacity and flow are at 100, and then just click to make a spotlight. Now, that's obviously way too harsh, but you can see there's this black circle on the mask. So everything in white is being affected by the curves adjustment that we did. Everything in black is not. So now all we have to do is go Command or Control T, then right click in there, select Distort, and distort this so it's covering, what we need. So I'm going to kind of rotate, maneuver this oval now to kind of cover her up like that. That's about all we need. Click check, and then go over to Properties. If you don't see it, go to Window and down to Properties right here, and then just slide the feather over to about 400 or 500, something like that, and that kind of blends it in. So if I click the eyeball now, that was before, and this is after. So it creates a nice little spotlight on our subject and kind of darkens the rest of the image to make it look a little better, I think. If that adjustment is too much, or any of these adjustments are too much, just click on them and drop your opacity down. So if I drop this right down, that's the original, and this is fully affected by the adjustment, and this is just kind of scaling it back a little bit. So I'm going to go just about 85% or so right there. Just know that you can also go back into your curves here. If you are selected on the mask, you might have to click back over on the circle thing here, and then just slide this down. Go to this bottom corner, and if you want to kind of bump up your shadows, you can just click this and drag it up. You can see the higher we go, the more we're bumping up the shadows as well. So if that's too contrasty for you, then just bump this up and you're good to go. At this point, we're actually going to combine everything that we've done so far into one image or layer at the very top. So click on your top layer and then hold Control, Shift, Alt, and hit E. That'll create that image. Then right click on it, go up to Convert to Smart Object, and then up to Filter and down to Camera Raw Filter. In here, everything we're going to do is in basic, so drop that down and start by dropping both contrast and highlights. So I'm going to bring my highlights down, I'm going to bring my contrast down, then bump your shadows and bump your whites. So I'm going to bump the shadows up to where I like and bump the whites. So you can see it still looks washed out, but by not bumping the whites, it looks a little too dull. So I like kind of bumping that up, and it still keeps that same kind of feeling to it. Then down here, I like to just bump texture to a level that I like. So if you go too far, I think it's too much, too like gritty. So bump that up a little bit, and I wouldn't really touch clarity. Clarity's makes it a little more like grungy and high contrast, so I'd keep that one down. And then maybe you might want to drop or bump dehaze a little bit depending on the look that you want. So I'm going to just wash it a little bit back, maybe back there a little bit. So play around in here as well to get the image looking the way that you like. When you're good, just click OK, and that'll update your image right here. And because it's a smart filter, you can always double click to go back in and make further adjustments if you want. So I don't really want to. I'm going to click cancel. So that was before camera raw filter, and this is after. Okay, so that brings us to our last step, which is going to be to add some grain or noise to our image. So to do that, we're just going to go Command or Control and then hold Shift and then click N. That's a new layer. And in mode here, we're going to drop that one down and put it to overlay, and then just click this fill with overlay neutral color, 50% gray. Name it if you want. So I'm going to just name this noise. Click OK. It's going to pop in right here as a gray layer right there. Then all we have to do is go up to Filter, down to Blur Gallery, pick any one of these you want. So I'm going to pick Field Blur, and then down here where it says Effect, don't ignore everything up here. It doesn't really matter. Go down to where it says Effects, Motion Effects, click on Noise, and you're going to slide these things to pick the level that you want. So I want quite a bit of noise, so I'm going to bump that up to 60, 70%, maybe a little bit less, somewhere in there. The size, again, you can determine what you want. I'm going to go somewhere around 40. Roughness, I'm going to keep there, no color, and I'm going to leave highlights at 100. Maybe drop the size down a little bit and amount. I think that looks a little bit better. When you're good, click OK, and that's going to appear on your image here. So I'm going to kind of zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. So that's without the noise, and that's with the noise. Again, you can mess with your opacity if you want, and or you can double click to the right, which brings up your layer style menu, And then just where it says blend if here gray, take this slider, slide it to the left. That'll get rid of some of the noise in kind of the bright areas of your image, because usually noise shows up in kind of the dark areas. But you don't want to drag this together, so drag it, well, you do, drag it together at first, then hold Alt or Option and click on this right half and separate it, drag it back to the start. So now that transition is a little bit more gradual, and then just click OK. So now if I hold Alt and click on this eyeball, that was our original image, and that's our classic black and white conversion. If you want to learn how to do other creative black and white conversions, make sure to watch one of the videos on the screen right now.